Yo, this is the Implicit Bias podcast. So, first off, we gotta think about what is implicit bias before we start actually talking about it, right? Implicit bias is just what you think of normally whenever you think about bias. So, it's prejudice towards a group or a certain person, and a lot of the time it's just gonna be unfair, right? Um, so, what forms it, right? That's what forms biases is either positive stereotypes towards a group of people or negative stereotypes towards a group of people. Like some examples of it are we have a positive bias towards people in similar situations to ourselves, right? So, like, it's seen sometimes where managers will hire people who are less qualified but have a similar background to themselves. And, like, a negative example would be, people who have their hair colored are seen as being like more childish, right? And it can affect people by like, it's upsetting, but it also closes off opportunities for people. Um, Luckily though, it's pretty easily tracked, and if you're a victim of implicit bias, you can usually file suit against that person. So, where is it prevalent in the US? There's like usually implicit bias is seen more so in the southern states and the breadbasket area. But, implicit bias isn't just something here, it's everywhere in the world, right? Implicit bias can also be seen in Europe in areas plagued by ethnic conflict. Like um, there's tons of examples of implicit bias, in Spain, where a bunch of cultures have evolved differently, and certain areas want to secede from the main part of Spain and form new countries. Um, so in The Hate You Give, we can see it a bit in chapter 11, where there's an implicit bias towards the white kids that don't want to go to the protest, right? Because, you know, they might be seen as racist a bit. And they feel the need to go and explain to Star, like, hey, I'm not in the protest because of this, and I can see through it, right? While it's very obvious to see through it, and people just are doing it to get out of class, they still feel the need to explain because they don't want to be seen as racist. It's also seen later whenever Maverick is being confronted by the police just for having a conversation. The police see that he has tattoos, and they don't like it. So they treat him unfairly, they say, get on the ground, right? Is implicit bias, like, preventable at all? I'd say it is. We just need to educate people on, like, just the whole situation in general, how you can, like, you need to go into things, like, just look at the straight up facts, like what people tell you. Um, However, I don't feel that it's completely preventable. It's always going to be there a bit, but, we could always help to educate people about implicit bias and reduce its negative effects on people.